more to add in terms of summarizing Iowa. The same summary I gave after the game, still holds true. We have to protect the football on offense. So that is going to be obviously emphasized all week long. Going into our Michigan game on the road, obviously Coach Harbaugh and the University of Michigan football program. Going to be a tremendous challenge. I think the home team has won the last 4 games. If you look at the all-time record at Michigan Stadium since joining the Big Ten, I think we're 3-8. So we want to really find a way to swing that in our direction and find a way to get a win on the road at Michigan this year, which is something that's been challenging for us. Obviously, we know these people very well. Josh Gaddis is their offensive coordinator. Josh was with me for a number of years at both Vanderbilt and Penn State, and that'll be a challenge. Don Brown, I've known for a long time. Don was a defensive coordinator when I was the offensive coordinator at the University of Maryland. Don was the defensive coordinator, I think, at UConn when I was the head coach at Vanderbilt. We played them, and then obviously since joining the Big Ten, he's done a really good job statistically since he's been there. And then on special teams, you got Jay Harbaugh. They have a dynamic returner in Giles Jackson, which is going to be something that we're going to have to find a way to limit his impact in the game. Obviously on defense, guys that stand out to you is Cameron McGrone, Daxton Hill, and Carlos Kemp are guys that really stand out to you. And then offensively, they got a number of guys: Giles Jackson again, Cornelius Johnson, Ronnie Bell, Hassan Haskins. So a number of guys, that we have to be aware of. They run a very, very multiple defensive scheme, always have. And that they've obviously become a lot more multiple offensively here recently with Coach Gaddis coming. So it'll be challenging, but our focus is on getting better today. That's what we have to do. Don't need to look any further ahead than that. Can't change the past. We just want to get better today. So that's our focus, and open to questions.
Start with Corey Geiger, Nittany Sports Now. Mark Brennan, you're on deck.
Good afternoon, James. How are you?
Hey, Corey.
James,
good. How are you?
Good. At 0-5, do you think it's possible as a coach that you have lost the football team? And do coaches concern themselves with those kinds of things that media and fans talk about, with losing a team when things are struggling?
Well, I guess what I would say is I look how we have played late in games, and we've played, we've given ourselves a chance to win some games in the second half by how we've battled and competed. But to be honest with you, Corey, I think that's a little bit of the nature of college football now, with programs like a Penn State in terms of the playoffs. I remember seeing things and hearing things and having conversations with Chris about that. You lose a game, and there's a portion of the fan base that feels like you're out of the playoffs. So it's a different college football now than it was 10 years ago because of the playoff system. But I look at how we've been practicing. I look at us late in games, and obviously there's disappointment. Obviously there's frustration. But I see how our guys are in the locker room after the game. I see how our guys are at practice, and I see how our guys have competed late in games.
Mark Brennan, Lions 247 with Fight on State, and Rich Starceville, you're on deck.
James, thanks for taking the time today.
You too, Mark.
To build on Corey's question a little bit, I wonder if you could kind of let us know where the general mental health of your players is. And I don't mean that in a trite way. You're looking at 0-5, everything college students are facing in 2020, and now going into a period where they're basically alone on campus. How tough is this for them from that perspective?
Yeah, it's a challenging time in general, and not just at Penn State. Across our country and across college football and the NFL as well. It's a very different dynamic, and I think it's something that I know I'm aware of, and I know it's something that our staff is aware of. I'm going to have a call tonight. With the parents. I'm going to get all the parents on the call just to keep them informed of how our guys are doing. We've gotten into a pretty good routine with COVID and coming into the year. That was my number one priority, to make sure that we kept everybody as healthy and safe as we possibly could. But yeah, it's the whole thing has been very surreal and obviously challenging. And even this week, we've been fortunate to at least have the parents that were able to travel be able to come to games. And this week in Michigan, the parents are not allowed to come. So, our family is the team, and we got Thanksgiving dinner on Thursday. We'll practice Thursday morning and give thanks and focus on our blessings. But yeah, it's this has been a tough year. Take football out of it. It's been a tough year on a lot of people and their families, from a health perspective, from a financial perspective, and then obviously their college experience has been very, very different. So stay positive, keep working through, keep loving these guys, keep supporting these guys, and remind everybody why we do this, and also try to remind everybody, who we've been, over the previous 4 years. Try to keep everybody focused on the big picture too.
Rich Scarcella, Reading Eagle. Tyler Donahue, you're on deck.
Good afternoon, James. How are you today?
Good. Appreciate you asking.
Also related to Mark's question, how would you describe the confidence level of the players right now? And if it is lacking, how do you go about restoring it or improving it?
I think it goes back to what I said earlier. Is we just got to get better today. And I think when you look in the past, or you look in the future, then that becomes a little bit more challenging, a little bit more difficult. So you just take it one step at a time, and you find things to get better at today. And the more days you put together like that, then the results will take care of themselves. And that's easier said than done. There's no doubt about it. That's easier said than done. And I think your point. Obviously, the more success you have, the more confidence you have, and then the more challenges you have, the more difficult that is. There's no doubt about that. So again, this program was built, with love and family. That has been challenged through these times with the way we can interact with each other, and the way we practice, and the way we meet. It's very different. It's very different. I think, if maybe some programs are run more like a business, then maybe it's not as impactful. But the way we run our program as a family, and very relational and interactive with each other, it's been different. It has been very, very different.
Tyler Donahue, Lines 247. John Petishnock, you're on deck.
James, good afternoon, and preemptive happy Thanksgiving to you and yours.
You too, Tyler.
Curious, through 5 games, how have you seen Kirk Shiraka behind the scenes work to put his quarterbacks in a position to be more successful week after week? Why have we not necessarily seen that come to fruition on game days? And where do you see the assessment right now with Will and Sean kind of up in the air based on what we saw last time they were out there?
Yeah. So, what I do know is I get here pretty early in the morning, and Kirk's usually in here before me. And he's a vet, and he's working his tail off to get it fixed and to make it better. When it comes to Will and Sean, we're going to need them both. We're going to need them both. And, I think the reality is turnovers have been our issue, one of our issues, but probably one of our bigger issues. And the reality is we've had it with both of them. So, we need to protect the football, but we're going to need both of those guys. They're both very passionate. They both work really hard. They both have skills, and we're gonna continue to grind and work through this to try to find a way to be successful today and then this Saturday against Michigan. But Kirk's a pro and a vet. He's been doing this a long time. And I think we got two quarterbacks that are very passionate, that are very competitive, and want to help the team win and want to be part of the solution. I have tremendous amount of respect for Sean, and I got tremendous amount of respect for Will, and I expect them to play well on Saturday and help give us a chance to be successful.
John Petitionoff, Football Letter. Audrey, you're on deck.
Good afternoon, James, and thank you for your time today.
You too, John.
Hey, after Saturday's game, Jahan talked about the need to start doing things with a winner's mentality and the importance of winning each week, each day, and each moment. Are there ways that mindset speaks to how Jahan has elevated himself into a team leader, not just with this production on the field, but also with coaching teams and practices and elsewhere off the field?
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit, but yeah, Jahan has done a nice job. He's obviously been productive in games. His growth and maturity as a player and as a teammate, it's been gradual, really, ever since he arrived on campus, and just continues to get better. And he's got a very steady approach. He doesn't really get too high. He doesn't get really too low. He's just very steady Eddie. And I remember talking to his family as well as Jahan last year and in the off season about the things that he needed to do to keep growing. And I see that from him. I'm also seeing him be more verbal, which is not something he had done a whole lot before that. I'm proud of him. I'm very proud of Jahan. The exciting thing is I still think there's a lot left for improvement with him from a developmental standpoint. But I do think he's a pretty good example to the younger players in his approach and his discipline and how he's gone about his career so far at Penn State.
Audrey Snyder, The Athletic. Ben Jones, you're on deck.
Hey, James. Good afternoon.
You too, Audrey.
I wanted to ask you something from Saturday evening. You guys went for it obviously early on that fourth down because you wanted to be aggressive. You said you wanted to inject something into the offense, but now that you've had a chance to look at that 4th and 17, when you're down 13 in the fourth quarter and you punt, what was the thought process behind that in a 2-possession game?
Yeah, obviously we've gone for it a bunch this year on fourth down, and trying to give our offense the best chance to be successful, to help our team win. And obviously when you're not picking up fourth and shorts and it doesn't give you a whole lot of confidence to pick up a fourth and long. So we had done a number of things to try to give ourselves a chance to win that game. We battled back and lost some opportunities there, but it just felt like at that point in the game it was the right thing to do, especially with the amount of fourth downs we've gone through this year and not been successful.
Ben Jones, StateCollege.com. Joe Giuliano, you're on deck.
Hey, James, how's it going?
Good, Ben. How are you?
Good. It's been a long time since we've heard you say pulling the rope in the same direction. That was a very long ago sort of phrase. I'm curious, where are you in that department these days, and how does this rope compare to maybe the rope that you were pulling 5 or 6 years ago?
Yeah, I think it's probably it probably makes sense, for right now, and I think really under challenging times, we've done a good job of that. I see it with the staff, I see it with the players, and don't take this the wrong way, Ben. I'm not saying there's not frustration and disappointment, but I see the guys really trying to do what we ask and are sticking together, and I think one of the things that's helped is the guys know that our structure and our system works and has worked at a very, very high level. So I think obviously we need to continue to do that. You know, and it's more challenging, right now than ever. But it's going to be important that we do that. That's as coaches, that's as players, that's as fans and alumni and lettermen and all of us. Um, we're going to have to stick together to work through this. We're not the first program that has faced this. We won't be the last program that has faced this, but we're going to get it fixed.
Joe Giuliano, Philadelphia Inquirer. Mike Gross, you're on deck.
Good afternoon, James.
Hey, Joe.
We talked to Antonio Shelton earlier today, and he said it's always good to. We talked to him about the frustrations that your players are having, and he said it's always good to know that you have an open door to talk to any of these players if they need it. I just wondered, are there more kids coming in your office this year than before, and what is your general message to them?
Yeah, and that's a good point, Joe. Everything, the interactions have just been different. I usually would have players over to my house for dinner. Can't do that. I'd usually have the freshmen over to my house multiple times to help them get adjusted. We can't do those things. I do have players. I've started on Mondays bringing groups of players, especially the young guys, in and just checking in with them and making sure they're doing okay. But just I kind of said this earlier, Joe. I am a relational leader, and this COVID and all the policies and all the procedures and all the things that we're doing to stay healthy has made that more challenging and been very different. As you guys know, we just started having team meetings in person a few weeks ago in Haluba Hall, but I wouldn't even necessarily say that that's the most personal thing in Haluba Hall with everybody spread out 6 feet apart. But it's just been very different. The connection, the ability to interact. And I think it's so important. It's been such a big part of our program that you're able to spend some time away from football with the guys on a very personal level, and that allows you to work through some of the challenging times and things like that. So just very different. But yeah, I have players stop in. Again, I wouldn't say it's more, because again, just the way our building is on lockdown, it's very different. And even the parents, I usually would get a lot of time with the parents on Friday before home games. I'd get time with the parents before the game, after the game. I'd get time with the parents during spring ball. They'd come up on the weekends, summer camp. They'd come up on the weekends and be out at practice, sitting in their lawn chairs and watching, and I get the chance to interact with them. And we haven't gotten any of those things. So just very different, very different.
Mike Gross, LMP Newspapers, and Neil Riddell, you're on deck.
Good afternoon, James. How you doing?
Hey, Mike.
I was struck with the fact that when you, in answering Corey's question, you brought up something about the playoff and this idea that people tend to think as soon as you lose a game, it's kind of over with. And I'm wondering, and it seems like you brought that up a lot this year, and in a various contexts. I wonder, are you a fan of the playoffs? Would you rather kind of do without it?
No, I am a fan of the playoff. I do think playoff expansion, which has been discussed for a while, is important, so that every conference, every major Power 5 conference would get an automatic bid. I think that's important, and then it also allows you to have someone from a non-Power 5 to be able to get in as well. I just this was discussed a lot. Going to the playoff system, what that would do to the bowls and everything else, and it's had an impact. I do think it's there's some positives, but I do think there's some challenges that have come from that, and it's been discussed a lot. It's been discussed a lot. I don't think there's any doubt about it. But yeah, I think in theory, I'm supportive of it, but I wouldn't say it's perfect, and I think a lot of people would probably agree with that.
Neil Rudell, Tuna Mirror, and T. Frank, you're on deck.
Hey, James. I'm just wondering, you were trending up going into this year, kind of bigger picture. How much do you think, or do you think this has set the program back, not only for this year, but, looking beyond this year of where it puts you guys and what challenges you're facing? And I wish you a happy Thanksgiving.
You too, Neil. Yeah, obviously, whenever you have challenges like this, it creates work. It creates things that you're going to have to work through. And again, to your point, I think obviously coming into this season before all the dynamics changed, I think everybody would agree that things were really going pretty well. And obviously we got a challenge right now, and we got adversity, and life is about handling adversity, and sports is about handling adversity. And that's what we're going to have to do. There's no other option but to find a way to get better today and find a way to get back on track, which our track was, I think, very well thought of.
T. Frank Carr, ESPN Radio 1450, and Donnie Collins, you're on deck.
Hey, James, happy Thanksgiving to you.
You too.
You've talked before about growing through adversity and learning from the experiences this year. Where do you think people grow the most in these sort of adverse situations, and what do you hope your team is learning through all of this?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is understanding, your why. What's the thing that gets you up in the morning and motivates you to be the best version of yourself. I think that's something that we always talk about, but obviously right now is really important. I think the other thing that you learn through adversity is winning is hard. Winning is really hard in major college football, but the opposite is harder. The opposite is harder. And I think what happens is all the things that are important. This magnifies it. It makes it very, very clear to everybody that those details and that those lessons and that those things that you pride yourself on are more important than ever. I think the other thing is it shows you that you can get through almost anything together, as a family. That's the players, that's the coaches, that's their parents, that's all of us. And in times like this, obviously you keep your circle tight and you keep moving. And for me, like I mentioned earlier, we just want to get better today.
Donnie Collins, Times Tribune, New Bias, you're on deck.
Hi, James. Thanks for doing this, and happy Thanksgiving.
You too, Don.
You've gotten some freshmen, some younger players into games out of necessity. You got, the running backs, Theo Johnson, Jacobs, guys like that. But how important is the rest of the season going to be for those guys those younger guys you don't necessarily have to play? And I'm thinking maybe of Roberson or even, I guess, Bowens when they're available. From a development standpoint, how important is it to get some younger guys going in these last couple of weeks?
I think we got to do whatever we got to do to beat Michigan. I think that has got to be our focus. We have to get better today, and we have to find a way to win on Saturday. Obviously, based on a lot of different factors, there's going to be more guys that get to play. Some of that out of necessity, but it's all about getting better today, and it's all about what do we have to do to beat Michigan.
New Bias Wilborn, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Frank Bodani, you're on deck.
James, I was talking to Jahan about the Sunday session. You guys get back and you go through the film and everything. From your perspective as a coach, particularly over the last couple of weeks as the losses have kind of piled up, what have those sessions been like? as far as getting the conversations that need to happen to go forward?
Yeah, they're obviously challenging. You come in, work so hard, and you come in and don't have the success that you want to have, and you got to sit in those meetings and have really good conversation and work through them, and work through what the issues are. So, they're not easy. Those Sundays after difficult games, are not easy on any of us. They create some sleepless nights on Saturday, and they create some challenging work days on Sunday. But for me, the thing that I want to make sure that these players know that they have my love unconditionally, and that is really important. I think a lot of our guys, maybe have experienced relationships that are fair weather. I know I have, but that's not what I'm about. That's not what we're about. So I want to make sure Saturday night after games, no matter what the result, and Sunday, Sunday afternoon, after games, no matter what the result is, that these guys know how much I love them and how much I care about them, and they don't forget all the success that we've had together. And for us to get back to that, we're going to have to do it the same way together.
Frank Bodani, your daily record. Greg Pickle, you're on deck.
Hi, James. I hope you can enjoy your holiday this week.
You as well.
Yeah, thanks. So you talked about being a relational coach and the struggles with the virus and being a family and how that's really hurt Penn State right now. What can you do with 4 games left to try to navigate that, to make that one thing better, or maybe to help the team in that way, even with all of the restrictions you have?
Yeah, we've tried to be creative, with that. I think, this week is a good example. We're going to Michigan, and we can't have meetings in the hotel. We can't have meals in the hotel. We can't do any of that. So we're going to have our meetings here before we go, and then the meals are just going to be, the meals are going to be grab and go there. So it creates a very different dynamic at the hotel. And to be honest with you, the Friday hotels, it's usually really cool. It's usually fun. You do your meetings. The families are usually all there. At night, they get to spend some time with their families, which is always tremendous. And obviously, it's not going to be that. As this thing continues to go, it becomes more strict. And really here in Pennsylvania, and specifically at Penn State, we've tried to push this as much as we can to get back to some normalcy in how we normally operate. But there's not a whole lot of wiggle room, because again, my number one goal and priority coming into the season was to keep everybody healthy and safe, and we've done that. But we also have to find a way to be successful in football at the same time.
Last 2 questions. First one to Greg Pickle, Penn Live, and Nate Bauer, you're on deck.
Good afternoon, Coach. Thanks for your time.
You too, Greg.
Coach, how much, when you look at the tape from previous weeks and doing everything you can to beat Michigan this week, how much of that is simply execution-based versus things like scheme and players knowing the plan heading into the game and halftime adjustments and things like that?
Yeah, I think it's all of it. I think obviously, we can do some things to put the players in better position to be successful. That's always the case. I think we can do some things a little bit better when it comes to execution. That is always the case. And I think the other thing is having some fun and flying around and making some plays and playing with confidence and playing with a swagger. But you earn those things. You earn those things through your preparation. You earn those things through having success on Saturday. So I think that's going to be something that's going to be really important in practice today, and finding ways to have some fun and have some energy out there and get better.
Nate Bauer, BWI, last question.
Hey, James. How are you?
Hey, Nate. Hey, good. I hope you have a nice Thanksgiving.
Hey, thanks. You too. In the spring, back in the spring, Dwight Galt, it seemed like he was ready to pull his remaining hair out, trying to figure out how to best keep everybody moving forward, strength and conditioning wise, through the quarantine period. If you could now, are you seeing ramifications of that today? And could you compare where they're at physically to where they might normally be at during a typical season?
Yeah, I think, to your point, Nate, it all adds up. It all adds up. A lot of the guys were home, did not have equipment or resources. Some guys did have gyms and places that they could go to, and then a lot of them end up getting shut down or kicked out of those. Some guys are at home with challenging circumstances. I think to your point, Nate, it all these things factor in, and each school is a little different in how they handle it. Each state is a little bit different in how they handle it. Regions of the country are very different in how they handle it. There's a lot of things that factor into it. There's personal decisions, there's personal choices. It's all of it. But yeah, I think the difference compared to our normal summer workouts, our normal spring training periods, and again, Nate, obviously, if you were fortunate to have a year where you didn't have a whole lot of turnover on your staff, this would be the year to have had that, which was not the case with us.
Thank you very much, Coach. Thanks, everybody. We'll